Okay, so this thing is on. Hello, welcome to the Tyee's 2021 DEBATE-A-PALOOZA. My name is Olamide Olaniyan. I am an associate editor here at the Tyee. Tonight, we're going to be helping you debrief and process what just happened at the just concluded English language debate. We have a sharp, insightful panel of commentators to provide us with wrap-up analysis. But first of all, I wanted to just quickly focus and do a land acknowledgement, and just before we start, kind of acknowledge that we are streaming live from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and we proceed to chat about politics and elections and party leaders and all of these stuff, right? But it's important to note and remember that colonialism exists, and it's good to understand the legacy of that and the ongoing oppression of Indigenous peoples in so-called Canada. So I think it's just important to think about how our presence here, working and living on this land, is linked to that, and consider how we can work to dismantle all these systems in our lives as society. So we just heard 2 hours worth of promises and debate. So we're just fortunate to have a wonderful stacked panel to help us unpack it all. We have a very limited amount of time, so we're going to be short and sweet, keep it at 30 minutes. My job tonight is just to ensure that we hear from everyone and keep the discussion moving and rolling. So without further ado, here are our guests. So first up, we have Robert Jago.
Mute. Yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Robert is a Vancouver-based business person, member of the Nooksack tribe and Kwantlen First Nation, freelance writer with work in a bunch of different places, including the Tyee. Please welcome Robert Jago. We have Karen Ward. Karen consults for the City of Vancouver on drug policy, the overdose emergency, and the downtown east side, and would prefer that everyone stop dying so that we can focus on making art and doing anything else, really. So welcome, Karen Ward.
It's been a nice break this last 2.5 hours, but no, it's hi.
Hi. And here's Ginger Gosnell-Myers.
Hi.
Ginger is from Nisga'a and Kwakwak'awakw Nations, and is an Indigenous Fellow with the SFU Morris J Wosk Centre for Dialogue. She was the City of Vancouver's first Indigenous Relations Manager and has worked with cities across Canada on urban Indigenous municipal policy and planning initiatives. Here's Ginger. Hi, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I
Good?
think it's been a rot 2 hours, I have to say.
Yeah, for sure. That was something. I personally feel very exhausted and tired, but I'm glad you guys are here to help us sort through that. I think the first thing that I want to kind of just jump right into is, a lot of things were said in this debate. So what did you hear that kind of stuck out to you that really just you heard very, very clearly and were like, oh yeah, that's an important issue and more people should be focusing on this in this election? I want to start with Ginger.
I think what struck me the most is how well Anime Paul did. I know that the Green Party, as an organization and political party, isn't doing that well. Their campaign is suffering, and I feel bad for them. I do, because a lot of things that were said tonight were important truths. I think Anime is acknowledging the women who have really been thrown under the bus by Ottawa over the last few years, like Jody and Jane and Mamaluk and Selena. Incredibly important to just say their names. She had some pretty good one-liners around how reconciliation is a buffet. People are really cherry picking what they want to focus on when it comes to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, like our basic human rights and self-determination is an option. It really isn't. And beyond, her truthfulness and really coming to us like a real person who is listening to us. I have to say that I heard a lot of sound bites from the other political leaders, and I don't feel like they resonated with me as people outside of the times when they were slinging mud at each other.
Yeah, I wrote down here that it felt more like a political speed round than any kind of like substantive conversation on the most important issues of our lifetime, you know? I don't know if that rings true to you.
It took 46 minutes before Lytton being burned to the ground because of the climate catastrophe that we're in right now was mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't hear about the opioid crisis until like the last few minutes of the debate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just wonder what issues the leaders and the journalists who are asking the questions we're thinking we actually care about and we're dealing with in our own lives. I care about a lot of the things that everybody talked tonight about, of course, but we've just experienced something collectively in the last couple of years due to COVID and the growth in wealth inequality and how we're not all in this together. And that didn't come through to me at all. Do I really think that they're going to take care of our needs? I don't know. That last question, one of the last questions on, would you put your mother in a care home?
Yeah.
That was a
pretty
zinger.
good.
That was a gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I would tend to agree. I think that if anyone on the stage, really showed us something new, that was Paul. She repeatedly said, we have to recenter. She called them on the crap several times. Almost the cliched, back and forth that they were doing. She called them on it a few times, and on the way that they turned every conversation into something trivial, which I thought was a really, really salient point, because that's what I was feeling too, is that, do you have to just turn this into crap? And then she kept doing that, and I think that was really effective, and I don't think we've seen a lot of that before. Not that I remember on a federal base. So I think that just clearly, again, calling it what it was. And I thought that was novel, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing from
yeah.
I think what I'm hearing from both of you is that this was really Paul's time to shine, kind of. The party hasn't really been doing so great, and I think she really cut through a little bit. I don't know.
I think it was her time to shine, but it was also showed us how inadequate our whole way of thinking of talking about politics in public is as well. I mean, I think that was a really remarkable contrast. So she made a space for herself. They took Clay took that. I think that it really, it only, like you say, they're not doing that well, but it throws into really sharp relief how inadequate our whole, the rhetoric and everything, all these gestures. It just felt so much like gesture to me, too much of the rest of it. And that's a horrible feeling. But yeah.
Yeah. Robert, what do you think?
I came away with a very different impression of Paul.
Go ahead.
I think, like Blanchette, she had the same opportunity to act without real consequences. She's not going to win too many seats. If one would be a blessing for her, maybe two now. So with the consequences so low to speaking very openly, I don't think she did as well as she could have. It was sorry.
So what you're saying is that kind of without the restraints of actually having to pull really high nationally, she could take a lot of risks and really try to do all the focusing as opposed to trying to score and throw mud and hit all the points as possible.
Right, and
she had a different objective than to her objective was to look good and personable than kind of winning, I guess.
Yeah, you could really, as a Green leader, Elizabeth May, did this the last couple debates. She really, without these high barriers of electability, she really was a very powerful force on the stage in a way that Ms. Paul wasn't. And I was just very disappointed by her environmental policy. It was very conservative. It was very consumer focused. We need to refit our homes. We need to take more buses or whatever. And I really liked Blanchette's policies on the environment, which are much more about industry and the state, about what they can do. Because I mean, as consumers, we're a drop, you know? I mean, a forest fire eliminates everything we can do as consumers. But what he talked about, like retraining Alberta, like using timber, that's I've never heard that. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah.
So what was like the big issue that you didn't hear addressed? Like I know like everybody kind of like didn't look too great, and some people like surprised, and some people like didn't. So what was the big thing that you didn't expect to hear that you heard, and what was the thing that you thought would be the defining issue that you didn't hear addressed?
Well, is this the first election where we talked about dismantling the Indian Act?
I think this is the first time that like all the party leaders kind of agreed kind of on Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination, I think.
It was great to have Melissa Ridgen from APTN there asking those hard questions. You know, it shows that, you know, people who are really close to the ground and close to the issues have a real impact in terms of the questions that they ask and pressing people for actual details on what they want to hear. You know, I was happy to hear that. I was not moved by the discussion on climate change. You know, and I feel like this is something that I'm going to repeat, is how disconnected it was from what we've all experienced and suffered through in the last year. You know, people weren't talking about the impact to our environment based on, you know, the heat dome, you know, cooking all of our shellfish over the last year on the West Coast, or, you know, the damage caused by like just all of the forest fires. Did they know that these things were happening? I didn't get much solace that they understood how we've suffered.
Yeah. How about you, Karen? What was the issue that surprised you that was brought up, and what were the big issues that you didn't hear addressed?
Well, I guess there was a brief mention already. I did lose the stream for a few minutes, but I didn't hear I heard some mention around the, you know, basic income and things like that, but I didn't hear like a recognition of like entrenched poverty, of the failure of, like I was saying earlier, like the failure of our, like the entire collapse of the whole, well, society, but like the social safety net, that whole idea that, you know, if you hurt yourself or you get sick, your life's not going to fall apart, because the fact is it will. You know, the nothing about the police in a real big in a way. You know, nothing actually like around, you know, the deep-seated like the problem with housing. I mean, they're talking about affordability, and it goes right back into the Canadian dream of everyone owning a home, and it's like that's actually part of the problem. And this contradiction, you know, that well, we want to protect the people who have equity in their housing, but also no, that's not how it works. And it just seems again that it was like, I was like, oh, you know, it's this, you actually have to make a decision about whether you're going to continue to profit off land and or you're going to actually change direction. And I that's just a trying. You can't have that both ways. You can't actually, like with the environmental and the kind of thing like that, you can't just say, oh, 2020, 50 will be at net zero. And that's just, I mean, you know, everything just blows up. I mean, what is the point of even saying that? It's just nonsense, as if that matters or will do anything. These like incremental, or the school of incremental, like it's just bullshit, and it's going to kill us. It all is. Like hundreds and hundreds, like Canada, like not the whacked out, you know, drug policy person, but Canada projected 8,000 deaths this year from the poisoning massacre. And there's like, okay, whatever. I mean, and then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds dying from the heat. And then, you know, everyone, like, it's just a collapse, and without the urgency and saying, no, this is wrong. We're going to do this. We're going to dismantle, you know, we're going to actually change this direction. Because right now it's like they're just chipping away at policy directions that are the problem to begin with. So it's just
yeah. So you're saying
affordability. What does that even mean? So
yeah, so you're saying like incrementalism versus like actually trying to get to the root of the fundamental problems, right?
Yeah, at it, and it's far too late for that now, as Ginger was saying.
Yeah, we've already kind of started experiencing the costs. I think it was interesting to see Jagmeet Singh kind of talk about like the costs of, you know, like climate change is already happening and stuff. I don't think that like O'Toole or Trudeau really like acknowledge that as much. I'm going to shift to like Robert. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I left the debate. The structure is really, really bad. I left the debate confused. I know that Trudeau supports COVID mandates, COVID vaccination mandates for the federal system. I know that, but I don't know what the others think of it. I know that that Madame Paul just came from Quebec, so everyone's Madame Monsieur. I know that Ms. Paul is supports a guaranteed annual income, but I don't know what the others think about that. What they believe on that. I know the NDP wants one for seniors. I know that. I think the NDP wants. I don't know. Maybe I misheard. Somebody wants to decriminalize drugs, but I don't know what the cross discussion is on that. I mean, it seems like if you did support decriminalizing drugs, and I'm on the Downton East side. I mean, I've seen 2 overdoses in the last 2 weeks. You know, I mean, it's a huge issue. It's if you do support that, it seems like you should push that policy at the debate, push the other leaders to talk about it, answer it, score points on it. And there's nothing so I left it very confused about actual policy that we let. And one issue that really didn't get almost any attention was the foreign ownership ban. I mean, when we're talking about housing, it came up a little, but I mean, the NDP doesn't support that. They want an extra tax, but everybody else, I don't know what the Greens think about it.
So what you're saying is that the Elections Commission needs to be reformed, is what I'm hearing.
I think,
or more tamely, that the elections debate format kind of isn't really helpful for election voters to really figure out what they think and what the leaders even think about the issues.
Yeah, I mean, if your question is what was absent, a debate was absent. There was no debate. So they may as well have just aired commercials. They're commercials for an hour. And then showed Rosemary Barton yelling at them. But that's about it. There's no debate. So, I mean, there's no debate. There's no debate moment. There's no, there's nothing. I left with nothing. The only thing I left with is wildly offended that Paul said that the natives are in a diaspora. That kind of bugged me. But beyond that, I have nothing else like on that.
So I guess like we've talked about like how the debate was a mess and how everybody's kind of talking past each other, and we had to keep like refocusing on what the issues were, and the questions themselves can seem to like fly by like what the issues were themselves, right? But I guess we should maybe like just look at, was there something from this that was maybe hopeful? What gave you a little bit of hope that like, September 20th is not going to be like a straight up disappointing and just like exhausting performance,
I think
we can start with go ahead. Sorry.
I think Aaron O'Toole was on poppers. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know.
I will not comment on that.
He had a very red mouth. He had a very red mouth.
Okay, Ginger, do you want to comment on that? On the question about hope. Please. No.
I mean, am I hopeful? That's a really tough question to answer in this time that we're in, where I actually spend a lot of my days feeling really hopeless and trying to be inspired, and I'm not finding it in our federal leaders. And I think that's part of the problem. Just listening to Robert talking about, the format of the debate. A lot of the questions that I had leading into this is, why do we have a Bloc Québécois leader in the English language debate when, he very clearly is only focusing his answers to win Quebec votes? We can't vote for Bloc Québécois MPs outside of Quebec. So, if it's confusing format and all of the voices are getting drowned out, like, let's be realistic about who needs to be in the room. Until we have some organization, so that we can clearly walk away from these debates, understanding who stands where. Unfortunately, I'm more confused than I am hopeful, and that's the reality.
Ginger, help me out here. So is your take that you want more regional parties or less regional parties? Do you want a Bloc BC, or do you want no Bloc? Is that the take?
Oh, wow. I mean, if we had a Bloc BC, what would that really look like? Maybe it would be better for us. Cool. We're definitely not being represented very well in Ottawa. I mean, our salmon are, they're not surviving under federal, rule. So, let's also get real about who is caring for what. The most dominant thing that we heard in this debate was the importance of pipelines and preserving the oil sector and jobs. And I'm sorry, this isn't, the 80s or the 90s. You can't win us over with that old tripe anymore. We demand more. And if I'm uninspired, it's not me lacking. It's them not coming through with a new paradigm shift that we've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
So we're at 8:25, so we're going to be rounding up soon. But I want to ask you guys just one final question to kind of get your final comment, and then we can say goodnight. I'll start with Karen. We had a great conversation about all of these different issues, right? But what is the one thing you want to say that you want to stay in people's minds? You just keep it to one sentence, just what is the thing that they should, leave this debate and kind of go have conversations with their families and friends about?
Stop killing your children. I mean, just do that. Look at the future you can live in. I mean, it's just, I'm just troubled by the whole thing. And I think stop killing your children and end poverty would be one takeaway, to just demand that of people that you elect.
Thanks, Karen. Robert.
My takeaway from it is that thank God for minority rule. We need.
Could you elaborate on that?
We need minority government. None of these people are suitable. But the Bloc had great policies. I really like it. It's the structure of it. I really like some of Blanchette's policies. I mean, he's a racist, but he has some good policies outside of that. The Greens had some good policy. The IDP had some good policy, and the Tories are very good at keeping the Liberals on their toes to hold them account. And the Liberals will do whatever the polls tell them to do. So I think that the collection of them, if you put them all in a room, 100 monkeys on typewriters, 1 million monkeys on typewriters, they'll eventually produce something valuable.
Shakespeare?
Something useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we count on them to do that?
Well, eventually. So I think that's the one hopeful thing, and I think that's the one takeaway, is that they point a very convincing picture of the value of minority government and the danger of our electoral system, that it could lead to one of these idiots in power with that much power.
Ginger, what do you think? We're going to end with you.
I'm uninspired by people who tell me that the answer for everything is jobs. We're not going to create jobs to work our way out of housing unaffordability, wealth inequality, climate change, pipeline economies, the destruction of our wild salmon in the West Coast, the opioid crisis, and we need to bring I think some change to Ottawa. We've only had conservatives and liberals ruling this country. Let's give somebody else a chance.
Thank you very much. Well, it's 8:29. Thank you, all three of you, for being here with me and keeping us great company, giving your takes. Someone's echoing, but I really appreciate you coming on and just staying here with us and helping us really work through all of these thoughts and threads. A lot came at us, but I feel very confident that we managed to tease out a few things that made sense, I think. Thanks to the team who, gave their insight in the comments and kept the event on track. And thank you to the listeners out there for tuning in and engaging with the issues of the day. We'll see you at the polls, and good night. Bye.
Right. Thank you.
Good night. Not voting is an option.